We have just one item involving an application tonight. That is the application concerning 34 Elm Street. The owner is Mohammed Fareed, represented by Mr. Levine, who is the builder, contractor on the matter. We had continued this at the last meeting. Is there a motion to take this from the table for further consideration tonight?
I'll make a motion to take it from the table. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're in business. I have in the file a couple of new things. I have a plan that has some handwriting on it. I believe it's the same stamped plan as we had before. It's dated, it's from Klim, K-L-I-M Engineering, dated 8/14/2018, except this one has some handwriting on it showing the placement of some trees, it looks like, and indicating, I think, that the intention would be to move the new structure proposed 25 feet to the rear of the property away from Elm Street. There were two files in the Dropbox. One was called plan and one was called
Was the letter
blueprint. Is that, there was only one plan, right?
right? I think the blueprint was the name of the file that, or the file name.
The other thing is a letter dated August 14, 2019, on letterhead from Mohammed Fareed, one page with, I think, 5 photos attached. The letter's not signed, and there's only one page of text in the letter. Is that correct, Mr. Fareed?
I do have the second page that didn't get scanned. So I can give this, I only have one copy. That was my mistake when I went to Staples. That was the second page.
Well, I'll pass it around.
Okay.
Can we get copies of this?
Yeah.
Why don't we get copies of that first, and I had, thanks.
No problem.
I had wondered today and asked Paul if there was a second page, and there wasn't, obviously, till now. This is a application for the construction of a, I guess, an accessory building in an R60 zone. It's deemed to be non-conforming because there exist already 2 principal buildings, in other words, 2 residential uses. That's not the issue tonight. That only makes it a pre-existing non-conforming lot. But because of the application, that's the reason it's before us, because any change to a pre-existing non-conforming use has to come before us. There was sentiment expressed at the last meeting from neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Drobnis, I believe is the name. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You now have the second page in front of you to the board, as do I, and we'll keep one for the record. Can I ask Mr. Fareed, is this your letter?
Yes.
Who were you sending this to? How did you send this?
I gave it to Eddie and he said-
Right, and I sent it to Paul electronically.
Okay, so it was intended for the zoning board.
I didn't know where else to go with it. He said it would be better to leave it in the open, so.
Okay, and Mr. Carmichael, do you have a copy of this?
I have no copies of that, no.
Okay. it's unclear because it says, it's dated August 14, 2019, and it says to whom it may concern. But your intent was to make that part of this record
For the.
before the zoning board?
Right.
Okay.
To address a specific issue of property value. It was argued that by building the structure, it would diminish his property value.
Okay.
We argued the opposite.
Understood. And I think, Mr. and Ms. Drobnis, you're in the audience tonight, correct?
Yes.
That is you in the dark, I can't see fully. Do the Drobnises have a copy of this letter?
I do.
Yeah,
Did
sent
Mr.
it to him
Drobnis?
today.
Yeah, I stopped by today to see if anything was filed.
Okay, do you have the second page?
I do not.
You can have one of ours, I mean, it just concludes, you can have this, I mean, it's,
Oh, I've got it.
just concludes from the first page. It's part of the record, but I guess I'm troubled at its relevance, and we can talk about that. I mean, I understand why the applicant may have wanted to say something in this nature. I don't know. Well, I'll let the members ask questions about it, actually. Do you have any questions for Mr. Fareed about the correspondence, the August 14 correspondence?
I don't have a question, I just don't think having it being part of the record has much to do with the exact, what we're looking at. I'm not sure it applies much.
That was my feeling as well. I understand that the property value question was brought up at the last meeting. And I understand what Mr. Fareed is putting this in front of us for. I'm not sure that we can be judges of property value based on an appearance of a property. I just wanted to make that cautionary note to us. I mean, we'll talk about it later, we'll deliberate later, when the hearing is closed. But it's unusual to get a letter like this, complaining about the neighbor who's complained about your application. And I'm not sure how constructive it is. And I just want to caution that it's of some relevance, but I don't know that it's directly relevant to our decision on how this application falls under the bylaw or doesn't. That's our determination to make.
I agree.
For the record, Mr. Tenore is not able to be here tonight for professional reasons. So we have a quorum with the members in attendance. And it falls to us to take this up tonight, whether we take a vote or not. We'll talk about that later as well. Regarding the new plan submitted, or the updated plan sheet submitted, I guess, why don't you tell us what is intended to be shown here?
It's our attempt to try to address the concerns of the neighbor who's in objection. He doesn't want to see a large structure from his property. I would argue that it's going to be over 200 feet away. It's going to be with trees that are 30 feet wide in scope and 22 to 24 feet high, and they're only going to keep growing. And then an additional trees, in addition to his tree line, which will hide a good portion of the building. So we would argue that it's not something that you're going to look out the window and see this mammoth structure that they're portraying it. It's going to be actually pretty hard to see from his residence over a period of time. He does have a lot of trees in his backyard, and they do block a lot of the structure. It doesn't show it on the plan, but he's extended an invitation to his neighbor to come show him, stake out on his property where it's going to be, and move it back at expense to him, because he's going to have to pave a driveway to the entrance, so that'll be a larger expense incurred to him, but he's trying to appease as best he can the objection. So screening was as part of the solution, so that's what he's willing to do. The other issue from last meeting that we got from this was on the definition of an accessory building.
Sure.
Of subordinate use, incidental subordinate use. I would argue that subordinate doesn't necessarily mean smaller. I mean, Napoleon was 5 feet tall. All his subordinates were bigger than him. You could be, subordinate use storage would be of subordinate use to a principal residence. I would argue, my sister lives in Norton, I've seen buildings that are bigger than the primary residence. So I think if they were to, the spirit of the bylaw were to stipulate that it had to be smaller, they would say so. And as far as I could research, there's no limit to the size of the accessory building in this town except governed by the size of the lot. And I clearly believe that he meets that standard. So I find that it's a question of property value. And that's the only relevance with the pictures in the letter. We don't intend to even talk about it. But we wanted it on the record because I think it's important to see how somebody keeps their yard if they're worried about their property values going down. And then I also have the representative from the bond company who's got some photographs, and he'd like to speak to the issue of property values. Clearly, his taxes are going to go up when this is erected. His property value is going to go up, and we believe that all property values will go up.
We had asked before at the last meeting about height and whether the second story or partial second story could be removed or diminished. Did you look into that?
We did, and I would speculate to redesign, they have pre-made kits, and to redesign something by taking that away would A, look like a box or a warehouse, which if he's gonna spend that kind of money, he wants something that enhances his property. He's got some pretty unique architecture on his property, and he doesn't want to put if that was his intent, he could have put up steel building or anything simple that wouldn't have the height. But he wants something that, again, enhances the value, stays with the look, and he's willing to move it as far as he can to the buffer zone, which we brought it right up to the edge, and screen it with large trees that will continue to grow.
Well,
We don't feel he should be just building a plain box based on what his neighbor wants to see.
okay. So the question was simply, did you look into it and what's your response, if anything? That's fine, I understand. Does this plan show the moving of the structure further back from the street?
Yes, the original plan, I don't know if you have it,
Yeah.
has it 25 feet further.
Oh, it does, okay. I understand you indicated in handwriting 25 feet further that way.
Well,
But-
when we apply for the permit, we can make it a little more professional.
Well,
On a time constraint and just for the basic principles, we're trying to.
Okay. The zoning board does have a rule that we require engineered drawings showing the engineered measured lines. We can get to that after. We can take this a little bit out of order because the original submission was showing that, but we would require that before making a decision. That's been our policy, and that's in our rules. But that's number one. That's a technical item.
Right.
I didn't know that it actually was moved on the drawing. I didn't inspect one next to the other. I thought it was just indicated with the handwriting. But you're saying that moving it 25 feet, well, that doesn't really jive with what I see here. Maybe it does. It's hard to tell. That's the purpose of an engineered drawing. Looks like moving it 25 feet would still leave,
Well, 10 feet from the existing home.
Well, no, because 10 feet
Yeah, that's what
is inside the buffer zone.
but that's what we need to see. I mean,
Okay.
where does it sit on the buffer zone? Does it impact the buffer zone? Or-
It does not cross the line. It would be right up to the line, as far as he could move it back.
Okay, that's my point, though, really. It doesn't show it on these plans, and the distance between the buildings isn't shown.
That's the 100-foot buffer.
I understand it's shown there, but
Yeah.
it needs to be
Engineered,
engineered,
yeah.
measured. That's our point. That's my point, anyway. Are there other questions on the plan submitted?
I guess I was just curious on the intent. Is the intent to put it right up against the buffer zone, which looks like it would be back?
No, I actually I have a small question from the last meeting. I thought I was 25 feet away from the buffer zone, but I'm actually 35 feet away.
Well,
So
no,
that's-
you are 25 feet because the 35-foot measurement goes 10 feet into the buffer zone.
Okay.
That's a measurement to the edge of the carriage.
I see.
I
That's what I was confused about, too.
That's why he's only confirming 25. He can't cross that line.
Oh, okay.
So you're
So we're gonna bring it
saying,
right up to the
you're
edge,
saying
we'll
that
fract on the buffer
bringing it to the buffer brings it 10 feet from the other
building.
building, I
Correct.
see.
I got you.
And we can get that in a more professional drawing.
Well, we need it.
Okay.
We need that in order to make a decision. You did not move the building any further from the property line, correct? The side property line.
It would be the same offsets further back from the street, further away from
Mhm.
the neighbor's home.
Okay,
And again, screened with large trees that he would be moving and adding. That would continue to grow.
So just to clarify that, there's three trees currently there, is that correct?
No, he's going to put three 22 to 24-foot trees
Okay.
behind it, and then on the other side of it, still in the back, abutting the neighbor's property, three 14-foot evergreens. 6 trees in total,
Right, so they're gonna put 6 trees in.
yes.
And are there any trees currently there?
Yes, I'm actually moving.
On both sides of the property line, there is a lot of trees. Actually, the neighbor's trees is going to obstruct quite a large portion of the building.
there's no fence there, is there?
No fence.
Well, we had discussed this at the last meeting and asked for the applicant to think about whether there could be modifications. He's come back with one of the two that were suggested, moving it further from the street, and has said he is not willing to reduce the height because it's a prefab or a kit building, I guess. The barn supplier is here.
Yeah, he would like.
Would you like to hear from this person? The applicant wants to present him, so I'll let the applicant do that. Could you introduce yourself, sir?
Certainly. My name is Tommy Thompson. I'm from Circle B Barn Company in Lancaster, Mass. Just a quick bit of history. We are over 600 barns at this point in our careers. I actually live in one of our barns, but that's not what we're looking for here. When we were approached about the design change, one of the things we had to do was make sure engineering-wise that we were in compliance. Now, we need to, as Mr. Carmichael can attest, we need to deal with snow loads and wind loads. So because of that, and the fact that you would have this box structure, we looked at the engineering and said this is about as low of a slope as we could do. And because of the width of the building, it carries that height, which still falls within the parameters of what's required by the town of Norton. So I spent a few hours today driving around town and looking at some of the buildings, and we are now probably as low of a slope as could be used on that building. So we want to try to keep some of the character of a barn there, to keep the property values up, to keep the look at the level of the neighborhood. It's a lovely neighborhood. We don't want to put a box back there. I have examples of our work if you'd be interested in seeing anything.
Let me ask you something. What is your position with the company?
I'm head of sales.
Okay. How long have you been with them?
Just a couple of years, but I've been off and on around the company for about 10 years,
Oh.
and they scooped me up.
Okay.
So nothing is changing from the original proposal?
Right, we saw that, we had engineered everything to make sure we were in compliance with the zip code, because that's where it all starts. So that gave us our parameters.
So these aren't pre-made kits. You design each one according to what's asked?
Correct. We start essentially with the zip code and what the request is from the customer. And when you have certain widths and lengths, you need to have, certain structure above it. And as long as we were within compliance of the overall height, we needed to engineer for the slope for snow removal and wind load.
It's not like there's another model that comes 10 feet lower than this one with the same dimensions.
Not, definitely not,
Yep.
and you would probably not want to see that building. It certainly wouldn't look like a barn at all.
Questions?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
The point of information is
Yes.
the type of construction that won't allow what he's talking about. So there are different types of construction that would allow a lower roof slope and not a second floor.
The pole barn issue, the pole barn
Timber
construction.
frame type 4 construction that they're proposing.
Of course, the purpose is to have an open area inside where you can park vehicles and, can't be a building with walls in it, I assume.
It's going to have separation walls. This building will have to have separation walls, and that will add
Oh, that's right.
structural or decrease the span, so that there would be a different way to do this. Because I will be mandating separation of less than 1,000 square foot spaces for a private garage.
So
So there are ways to do this.
to address his concerns,
Yeah.
we agreed to that and we didn't modify it by adding 2 extra doors. So it would still look like a barn, but it would have 3 separate doors.
Essentially create separate chambers. But it's a fairly low slope building, which is non-traditional for New England as is. You know, in the traditional barn in New England is a 10-12 pitch. This is, I believe, a 4-12 pitch. So we've brought the slope down pretty far, just so that we can shed snow off it. We could build a flat roof that would require a tremendous amount of engineering, and it really wouldn't be a building you would want to see at all.
That was one of the concerns that Mr. Carmichael had last time, and that's how we had to redesign with the walls inside. In fact, I actually looked into a sprinkler system as well, but that wasn't in
The budget.
that wasn't in the cards, so.
And now with costs having escalated over the last 21 months since we were approached about this barn, it's become increasingly more difficult to make changes at this point.
Okay. Mr. Carmichael, did you have any other input to what you've seen on paper tonight or from what you've heard so far?
No, I gave you my opinion on the structure and the type of construction.
Yes. At this point, let me ask if Mr. and Mrs. Drobnis want to say anything. Anybody else in the audience as well, of course. I'll give you the opportunity to do that.
Just one comment against the letter that was filed. I didn't find that was appropriate or the right place for that letter to be filed. And that's all I have to say about that. If the neighbor wants to file stuff with other departments, then that's fine. We can go through those process. But I don't think this is the place to discuss that.
My reaction was, and the reason I started out asking who the letter was directed to, I didn't know if it was sent to the building commissioner to lodge a complaint. I don't know if that's done very often or not, or if it was intended to come to us for consideration. That's exactly what I was asking. Right now, it's a letter, and there are some photographs. I'm not going to get into it further. I don't think we need to. Nor do I really want to make a back and forth part of the discussion. If there's a dispute there, it would go to probably Mr. Carmichael in another way. I imagine, Mr. Carmichael, you get complaints sometime that you look into.
Too many.
Too many, I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that. And I'm not saying that this is one, obviously, we just heard it wasn't directed to you, so I'm just going to leave it alone for now. Thank you, Mr. Drobnis. Does anything in the changed plan, Mr. Drobnis, change your mind or your scope?
No.
So this is, public hearing is still open. I'm not cutting off questioning, but where do we go with this?
We're going to need a new set of plans showing if there are.
We are.
Doors, and now the structure's going to look completely different than.
I don't think, the zoning board doesn't require the what are they called, architectural drawings, but we do require what I call a plot plan. Is
So
it,
what I could offer is an as-built prior to the building being erected. I could go out and verify the foundation as built, and then verify the setbacks that you, or variances that you would issue tonight.
It's been our practice, though, to require that to be shown to us, get a stamped engineer drawing, that's in the rules, and I'm not sure I want to deviate from that, especially in this matter. Yes, sir?
Mr. Freed's perfectly willing to leave the things as they were in that location. We're perfectly willing to build in the location that was previously stated and engineered. But if, in trying to reach a settlement with the neighbors, he was offering to push it back.
Yeah, I don't see much of a settlement here. I don't think there's a settlement in the
Well,
offing.
that allows for him to, it would be much more difficult for him to be able to see the building if that was his objection.
We understand, thank you. We understand that, and I think that's why I'm saying we need a plan set to vote on. I'm not willing to go with, well, we're going to do this. When we've had things that have taken several meetings, I know that we have opted in the end to have Mr. Carmichael see the final plan, but this is a fairly new application. It is in our rules that we require a stamped engineered plan, and I think we should stick to that, and require that be submitted prior to vote. I mean, I don't know that what has been represented to us in a drawing that, well, it's really right on the line. I'd like an engineer to tell us that, a surveyor to tell us that.
100%.
Yes, sir?
That would be acceptable. We could do
Okay.
in short order, I believe.
Sir, would that remove the objection then of the neighbor? Because if it's not.
No, thank you, no, thank you. It sounds like it does not remove the objection. All we're saying is before we go on to discuss and take a vote, we're going to ask that the applicant submit a properly stamped plan, all the dimensions shown, the dimensions between the proposed structure, where it is relative not only to the side yard, but to the front property line, and also relative to the wetland boundary and relative to the other buildings shown on the plan. And that's what our rules require, so that I thought that would be submitted prior to tonight, stamped by an engineer with those dimensions drawn on. If it wasn't, that's okay. I'm just saying, I think we're going to have to come back again. At least that's my feeling expressed to the board. Do you have any different take on that?
No.
No, not at all. I guess I'm just, I don't know, I don't know if this is the right word to use, disappointed in the sense of, I thought by moving it back, it was going to make it a little more agreeable for everybody, and I was going to feel more, because I was uncomfortable where it was in the size of the structure. And, none of that has really changed, I guess, in my mind, to a certain extent.
Okay, well,
So
here's,
moving it, I guess in some ways I'm back to square one. Where it's located on the lot isn't necessarily, I'm not so sure it's important to me.
okay, well, I guess then, I mean, a member can move to close the public hearing and take a vote, if you'd like. I'm suggesting asking for the plan because I contemplate taking a vote at the next meeting. If a member feels that that's not going to change anything, even if the dimensions are what the applicant has said, I'm not interested in causing the applicant to spend another $1,000 or two to come back again.
And at that point, why are we going to ask him to, if it's not going to solve the problem of the neighbor moving it, why are we not going to stick to the original plan at this point?
That's fine. If that's the feeling of you as members, then I'd suggest you express that and make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have another little
ahead.
section of the bylaw I'm having trouble with. On 1.5E
Yes.
in the bylaw, I'll summarize towards the middle of the paragraph. It is the intent of this subsection that such change of use be permitted by the Board of Appeals whenever the proposed use is of the same general class as the existing non-conforming use. And that's what I'm having trouble with. It's not really, the non-conforming use now is 2 residences on a lot. So that's not the same general class as adding in a garage for storage of automobiles. That's where I'm hung up on currently.
I guess to me, a class is residential use, and I realize most people don't have 13 cars, but that isn't bothering me. It's a frank discussion, it is fine, to
That's
bring
just
that up.
something I get stuck up on, and I couldn't.
I understand.
I read it 2 or 3 times, I couldn't
So use
associate.
groups, residential use groups, and then the U-use group is accessory buildings, which are customary accessory to residential.
Would be in a
So it's
garage
gonna be
falling.
chicken coops, garages, barns, private garages, so, but it's the size of this, the scale of this, that's,
The scale is more, to
And
me,
that-
to me, when I read it multiple times, it's saying, I think you know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
It's not the same non-conforming use in my, not that we can't change the non-conforming use either. I believe that's in the statute, you can change or extend.
Well, this is by definition extension of a non-conforming use, because anything that changes it, I mean, if it's more construction, it's an extension. But, I mean, that was counsel, Amy Questel's concern, that it wasn't really a subordinate, it's the word subordinate use. I realize it doesn't mean shorter in the case of Napoleon, or,
It's not quite related.
smaller in the case of a building, but that was Amy's concern. I'm not so taken with that. I'm signaling that I'm okay with this, but this has to be, it only gets passed if it's unanimous. And if what you're saying is it's not going to get there, then I'm suggesting perhaps one of you should make a motion to say it's time to close the public hearing and take a vote, because, again, if we're not going to come to an agreement just by seeing another plan set, then, I think we owe it to the applicant and everybody else to be upfront about that. I mean, it's difficult because I just said we're not going to take a vote till we have the plan set, but that was assuming that there was more to be discussed in seeing that plan set. And if you feel there isn't,
But if Chris is saying,
then you should say that.
we're looking at that use being, it's just a bigger, use as a garage. What we're looking at is just a larger use than normal. Not that it's not allowed, just larger than.
Right.
But we still, Chris, correct me if I'm
still
wrong, we're still.
customary and auxiliary to
Right.
residential use,
And the
yes.
one question we've had over the past was this a garage or is it storage? Because the use classification changes. Storage
This
is
could be a
bigger
warehouse, and we could be putting
Is-
commodities.
Is storage separately defined?
So,
yeah, storage is separately defined. It's in a different use class.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the type of storage. So is it low or moderate hazard storage? The amount of quantities in there should be regulated by myself and the fire department. So there are some more questions. If you are going to proceed, and before you close the public hearing, I'd like to ask the board put affidavits of restriction filed at the registry of deeds that this is not going to be a habitable building, and this building will not be used for commercial purposes.
Understood, and that was the recommendation of council as well. But what I'm hearing is that we're not going to get to another meeting or an approval. That was going to be my suggestion, those provisos that council suggested. Yes, Mr., go ahead.
Clarification, if you would be so kind. The size of the lot, from what I understand, dictates the size of the buildings that can be put on it.
Percentage.
Not,
Percentage.
yes, if it approaches an upper limit.
Right, so, and from what I understand, we're well within those parameters at this point. So if it's like sort of a judgment call, I don't see how that's germane. It should be what the rules state, they can have up to X square feet, and we're way below that.
That's generally used for smaller lots, say 5,000 square feet or less, where they have a 4,000 square foot building.
I'm just
That's
asking.
generally where it's,
Right.
not an
What is the
80,000 square foot.
This is not approaching the upper limit of what, and I don't know what size would or could be allowed there. I haven't done the math, but that's not really the concern.
We're up to, allowed up to
Right.
30%, I believe.
Yeah, and there's impervious surface rules and things like that. We're not there.
So we're clearly well below what would
Yes.
have been allowed. So the size of the building at this point really shouldn't be germane to a vote, I would think.
Well, we see it differently because of other factors in the bylaw.
Okay.
That's the expression, at least, of a couple of the board members.
But I'm getting there.
Sorry?
I'm getting there. I'm working through it in my head. I can
Okay.
see with Chris's a little explanation helps a little.
Okay, I mean,
It's a bylaw.
if you feel we need more time, then we can ask to extend it again. Although, what is, our extension is through, I think, to
End
September.
of September.
30th
right,
anyway.
September 30th,
And
right.
what is our meeting in September? Did we set it yet?
No,
No, okay, guess we should do that.
yeah.
I mean, if you feel you need time to consider, then that's fine too. Speak up and say that. You know, our deliberations have to be at the meeting, so we can't take a break and, talk amongst ourselves.
Right.
It all has to be done in the open. But if you feel that you just need to read things over or, look around at other uses, say so. All I was saying was, I was signaling that I was okay with this and that, subject to seeing a proper plan set, I was going to be okay with it. But we need to be unanimous to pass it. So if we're not going to be, now's the time to either say, let's close the hearing, meaning that we then take a vote. Once it's closed, we take a vote. Or continue, you need more time. Continue this, for another few weeks. We're bumping up against the deadline of September 30th, but we're going to be meeting before then anyway. I mean, we could do it earlier in the month too, just to give us some breathing room. I'm just trying to put the options out there on the table. I'm not trying to, force the issue now. I just didn't want to say, come back spend another couple grand on another plan set, or $1,000.
Exactly.
Another plan sheet, and then have them come back, and then,
And is it worth doing it all?
same concern, right.
If it's not gonna
Right.
help the situation at all, why even
Yep.
change anything?
So if you're not sure as to how you want to go, we can say that as well, and continue it. In other words, not close the public hearing, but continue to next meeting, which we'll set, look at it right now.
Al,
Where are we?
is there something else? I know you're struggling trying to determine if this is of that same use. Is there, or use category, is there something else that you need looking into?
No, I think, Mr. Carmichael explained it, helped me a little. It's not how I was looking at it, basically.
Okay.
I was looking at it differently.
I agree that this is not it's not customary, to use Chris's words, to have a garage with vintage automobiles, but my garage is full of junk because I don't have any vintage automobiles.
I like the applicant was just.
I could build a bigger garage and say, I got lots of junk that I need to store there, and I'm not sure that would be objectionable. And so what I'm saying is, if it's a garage to house vehicles, to me, that's the same subordinate use to a residential property.
If
And
Mr.
that's why I
Carmichael
was,
explaining it that way to me, I'm fairly comfortable with it then, as far as.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. As far as being a subordinate use to, I'm more comfortable with it.
but it certainly isn't customary. I mean, we don't have any garages to store multiple vehicles, more than a few anyway, that I'm aware of, or shouldn't.
Yeah, and that's where I'm hung up, is it customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal built structures? And is a structure this size,
But taking the size,
Incidental.
but taking the size out of it would be. If this was 1,500 square feet, would we even be talking about it?
no, it wouldn't be at all. Absolutely not.
If it was a regular sized garage, I
Right.
don't think.
No, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't have any issues at all. To me, it's all about the size of the building, and by definition, it's subordinate to the principal buildings, just based on its size alone, and the size of the building compared to the proposed building,
In your opinion, is not subordinate?
so it's not subordinate, right?
Okay.
So if-
Yeah, the definition certainly we use, it's subjective, no doubt about it.
Is there, if this gets continued, is there anything that either we or the applicant could provide to help, if this gets continued, but to help provide you with answers you need to help get you to a decision?
I think from day one, from the first day we looked at this, it's always been the same issue, I think, is this definition.
Well, we're proposing to change it. We've submitted a bylaw amendment for fall town meeting.
Yeah.
We've drafted a new definition of accessory structure, which places size restrictions on, but gives the board or the applicant an ability to come to it, but it does, of course, we haven't gone there, so
Sure,
obviously that wouldn't be applicable,
Yeah.
but it's much, what we're proposing is much clearer and cleaner than what we have in our current bylaw.
So accessory structure. Where is it?
May I ask one more question?
Of course.
The wording in that bylaw, does it say subordinate size or subordinate use?
I'm looking for accessory use or building.
I found it.
A use or a freestanding building customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal permitted use or building located on the same lot as the principal and not prohibited by another section. So a freestanding building customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal permitted use. And my point was, this is customarily incidental and subordinate. It's a garage for vehicles. The size, for me, doesn't take it out of that class. That's just it's a judgment call.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. We make judgment calls.
Yeah.
To me, it's, the 1.5E language is more controlling than whether this is customary for the town. I don't think we're gonna have 10 garages storing, 12 or more vintage vehicles if we allow this. Non-conforming use changed, extended, or altered upon a finding by us that such change, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use, and is subject to such conditions as we might approve. It's the intent that change of use be permitted by the board whenever proposed uses of the same general class as the existing non-conforming use and will not significantly increase traffic, noise, bright lights, and other undesirable impacts on the surrounding environment. Those factors of the lights and noise and other undesirable impacts, I don't think are present here, except for that there will be a building there of some dimension, some size. I think we asked the applicant, he's not going to put lights on the building facing the property. In fact, that could be another condition that we require. I don't think he's going to do that anyway, but, so I'm just saying that my feeling is if it's not prohibited, it's not something that I'm comfortable saying you can't do.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, that's a great point. The undesirable impacts, you don't feel that the size of the building falls under that definition?
The factors are shall not significantly increase traffic, noise, bright lights, other undesirable impacts on the surrounding
I guess I'm asking the
environment.
other undesirable impacts.
The other, if you're reading, the size of the building as an undesirable impact, that's fine, that's your judgment. I'm saying it's not my judgment, that's all.
So, okay.
Clearly, if it says size, it's a non-issue, we couldn't do it.
I go with comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Drobnis?
So, Mr. DiGiuseppe stated that for the next town meeting, that you are going to put size comments and definitions in. So if size is not a concern, but it's a concern in the future, then isn't it a concern now?
We
I
can't,
understand that the applicant has applied to the current bylaws as written,
you got it.
but there is a thought here that this has brought up, that you're looking to amend these bylaws for future usage. So there is a concern of size. You're saying there's no concern of size, but there's a concern of size that causes a change in the future.
We don't even know what the bylaw I don't even know what the bylaw proposal is.
Right.
So I don't know if this would be over or below that bylaw proposal, and then it's up to town meeting anyway, it's not up to us. We just can't consider that. I understand your
But it's a concern.
point is the size of the structure.
Right.
Understood.
Right, because sorry, I don't know everyone's name here. The other gentleman mentioned that if this was a 1,500-foot structure, we wouldn't have a conversation. And I had stated before that a smaller structure I had no problem with. Like, if he was putting a 4-car garage or a 5-car garage in, I had no issue with that. This is a 3,100 square foot garage. That's the issue I had with it. So just want to make sure that that's clear, as well as, obviously, everyone has opinions. My opinion on accessory and subordinate are similar to the other gentleman over there in terms of what is subordinate, what is accessory.
I'm going to make a motion that we close, I'm not sure the right term,
Close the public hearing.
close public hearing.
The motion's been made to close the public hearing. Is there a second to that motion? We get to talk about it after, before we vote.
And we can reopen if we had to, correct?
I don't think so.
No. So my question is, if we close the public hearing, which plan are we closing the public hearing on? This doesn't seem to be something, the new one, something we're considering, that if we're closing the public hearing tonight.
That's a good question. The plan that's been well, it's all part of the file, right? The original plan was in conformance with our rules. I don't think the second plan is.
And that wouldn't, if we have discussion now more,
It would be a denial of the application.
it would be in denial, but if, we wouldn't be able to give him the opportunity to go back and,
Well, an applicant is barred for 2 years of going back on the same application for 2 years. That's an interesting legal question.
I guess my-
Whether he'd be barred from coming back with a new plan showing it 25 feet further.
well, not even that, if we close it right now, we have to close it and just, even if we said, yes, we're fine with moving it back, and the original plan is what would be in the record.
My view is, yes, but that's a legal question. The only time it would come up would be if the applicant then appealed the decision to the Superior Court, which he has the right to do. Anybody aggrieved by a decision can appeal to the Superior Court, starting, a court case over it. And that's fine. I think that's the only time it would come up. Or if the applicant tried to come back and submit another application using the second plan within 2 years, then it would be, is this a
Is that a
repetitive
repetitive?
application or not? I would say no, due to the circumstances, but again, that's a judgment call, subject to, a court telling us that we're wrong later. I mean, that's why I'm saying, if the members feel they need more time, I would suggest a motion to continue to the next meeting would be perhaps best. And we could consult with counsel again, ask her to attend. We can do that, by correspondence and ask her to attend. Closing the public hearing, I think, means that I don't think it means you can't then vote to continue it for the month.
Right.
But
But
I
then we wouldn't
think
be-
closing the public hearing means it's closed. I don't know if we could reopen or not. I've never faced that. I mean, I could ask Amy that as well. Clearly, if there's a question, I'd say just continue it for 3 weeks.
This came up at planning board recently.
Oh, thank you.
And it's, if circumstances or conditions change, that would be the big factor in terms of reopening a public hearing.
Thank you. Rather than just closing it and then saying, we don't really want to close it.
Right.
So if there's doubt there, I would suggest a motion to continue would be more in order. There's a motion pending to close the public hearing, at which time, as chair, I would say it's time to vote. Because, well, we get to deliberate then, and I think we could still ask counsel for her input even in deliberations. I'm not sure of that. I'd have to I'd have to ask. But we wouldn't be able to hear anything further from the applicant or the public.
No new information, so
Right.
you would be, I guess so, if you close it, you wouldn't be able to get that engineered drawing.
That's what I was kind of.
I think that's
That's new
probably correct.
information.
Yeah, that's,
so.
I think you're right. So I'm not sure the utility of closing it. If we're not sure yet, I would suggest just voting to continue, even if you just need time to think this over.
For me right now, I'd like to digest what Mr. Carmichael said and read it more.
Do you want to hear further from Mr.
No, I'd like
Carmichael?
to digest what he was planning and read more about accessory uses.
So that's in chapter 3 in the IBC and the use groups. It gives you a whole long list of accessory customarily incidental to residential. Again, chicken coops, sheds, barns, tool sheds, private garages. They're all pretty much under the use group.
And what are you referring to, IBC?
IBC, International Business Code. So it's
Building code?
building code.
Building
yes.
code,
So it's
okay.
the 780 CMR, it's the Mass State Law on building codes. So if Mr. Allen wants to look that up, I'm just directing him where to
Yep.
look it up.
Thank you.
Again, these are customary uses, but it's the size and the scale that's the real issue.
And that's where I say, I think that's where our judgment comes in as to what's acceptable for the town. And we've faced these judgment calls before. That's why we're here.
But the fact that you're considering,
Excuse me, hold on one second. Same observation that, if we're not sure, I'd suggest not closing the public hearing and coming back, where we could maybe, you come up with a question that is a light bulb, that you get an answer to. You can't do that if we close the public hearing. So closing the public hearing and then continuing it, to me, is not the right way to proceed. I would rather see it just continued, at which point we can ask Amy for her input as well. And keep open the possibility of asking another question or two, as many as you want. There's a motion on the floor to close the public hearing. I'm not going to second that motion. If there is there a second to the motion? Okay.
Not this time.
That motion is off the table. Is there a motion to continue this to a meeting that we will set right now? Is that the feeling of the board? I'm fine with that.
Should we talk about it a little more if we want to make them revise this plan or not?
Sure, yes, to at least straighten it out in our own minds. I was asking for that. Clearly, we can't make a decision until we vote and make a decision. I was telegraphing, and I
Correct.
think I did last time, that
Yes.
this is unusual, but that I think with proper controls, I would vote for it. That's why I suggested an additional, the new plan set showing the engineered distances and all that.
Can I also add, again, if, just as a consideration, we have bylaw that includes landscaping requirements, because I would just suggest if the board were to approve it and hearing, from the abutter that the view is part of the issue, and I realize that may not be where the abutter is going, but if we're able to adequately screen it for them, we have that within our bylaw to require it.
And the applicant has offered to screen it.
So
That
that should
would
be
be
in the
the-
engineered plans.
That would be on the plan.
That would be on the plan as well, yeah. That should be on the plan as well, I would say.
If that's the case too, I would just suggest that they put in a maintenance plan, which we would normally require as part of a site
To
plan,
maintain that screening.
to ensure that the vegetation survives.
And it usually isn't 22 to 24-foot tall trees. We need a spec of what the trees are,
The type of trees.
type of trees, type of plantings.
Well,
Is that
Please.
I'm sorry, Chris Carmichael first? I'm sorry.
yeah, so I feel that this might need a site plan review as well, as this is over 2,500 square feet. So this might go to the planning board, so they are gonna need site work, so more civil drawings done up
Explain that to me, please, if it's over
Anything
20,
over 2,500 square feet.
that was mentioned at the last
Non-residential.
meeting, and I meant,
Non-residential? Is
I
that-
meant to look at that.
Non-resi,
Yeah, right.
it's
I think you're right,
non-residential.
Bob. That's 17, I looked that up earlier, so that is a question.
Whether it would also require, I'm not familiar with
I
that.
believe it would not require residential.
Because it's residential would not require
Commercial
site.
would require.
Well, again, that's been the issue you've had since the beginning, was to determine if this were a subordinate use, then what you are saying is essentially it's accessory to residential. What Lucas had brought up, and we had brought up, is this provision in the site plan provision, which you all don't look at, but it does say that in general, a non-residential structure over 2,500 square feet or more, or over 2,500 square feet, would require a site,
A
would require a site
non-residential.
plan.
Non-residential
And
structure.
this is an extension of a residential.
So
Well,
that's
that's the
that's
issue.
the issue
It's
you're
the-
debating.
right,
But if you all decide it's not, then this would have to trigger a site plan review, which it might
Then
not
it's-
go, if you don't
then
grant
it's
the
dead.
variance, it's not going anywhere anyway, but
Unless the applicant applied to the planning board, I suppose, but then he would be asking to do a commercial
Still need
thing
to-
on the residential property, and that wouldn't
So
fly.
by saying,
Right.
so if we would have ruled, just an example, if we would have ruled that it's not insubordinate, subordinate to to the other buildings.
If it's
by
not
definition,
subordinate,
now it's not considered residential any longer? And then it goes-
well, because you would be saying at that point, it's not a garage as a traditional garage.
you can't fit it into a residential use,
that,
you'd be
that
saying.
there are storage facilities for cars that you would, that's what you would be saying, and that would become a commercial use, which would not be allowed in this zoning district.
Right.
So I guess,
It wouldn't change the lot designation, it just dies.
Yeah.
Yes,
I would just say it's a private garage, it wouldn't house anybody else's vehicle.
we understand that, and that's part of,
Therefore, would remain
understood,
non-commercial.
and that's part of the, yes, and yes, I'm sorry, I was gonna call it.
There's 3 utes and 3 evergreens.
I'm sorry?
Utes, 3, I think it's utes, they're like,
White cedar.
yes.
Oh, the trees.
Yes. yeah.
I didn't understand what
Don't have a
the
tree.
word was, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And the 3 evergreens as well. So, and those are extremely, extremely hardy.
Right.
If you've seen Mr.
And I would make sure that they don't die. I'm in my yard literally every day.
If you've seen Mr. Fareed's residence, it is impeccable. So, it's right around the corner, it's worth a drive-by, it's really
And
stunning.
he does have a maintenance landscaping company regularly take care of the property.
Which is about, not that it matters to the board, but it's about 15,000 a year is what I pay for the landscaping and the irrigation and things. So I love them. I love them.
I mean, we could, a condition could be that it's, the screening is maintained,
Right.
and even irrigated, I suppose, although I don't know if that's doable at that spot. I assume it would be, but it sounds like the board needs more time to consider this. Am I right in that
Yeah.
assessment?
And I do think it's important to understand what the screening's gonna look like, because that could make a big difference. I mean, if it's truly covering the building,
You're talking to the applicant, that's fine. Can the applicant provide some,
Pictures, I can't.
I mean, first of all, if there's another plan, it should show the screening on the plan, so that it's something that we approve, we hold you to the screening.
We can do that.
The alternate way of doing that, I mean, not an alternate, but an additional way of doing that is to literally show us or get a landscaping plan to show us. I'm not suggesting that the applicant has to do this. It's in part, I'm giving you an opportunity to convince the board that what this is going to look like later. That's the suggestion, I think, that I'm hearing from the board, from the members.
Something you'd like that landscaping company to draw up, or something you want me to draw up?
Now, we've had landscaping companies give us a rendering, what is it called?
A rendering,
A rendering of what
A
it would look
landscaping
like.
plan.
But also then the same bushes would be shown on a plan, so that if we were to vote yes to approve the plan, you are held to that plan. So I'm just trying to firm it up. as
I'm
much
okay
as
with that.
possible.
The trees that I have, the 6 trees, I actually have those on my yard, and they will be moved.
Oh, you were going to
by-
move them, right.
By a tree company, and they guarantee them not to die. And plus, I
Okay,
have
but
irrigation.
that might be something fairly easy to work up with the tree company or the landscaping company.
Okay.
I'm sure your contractor knows what we're referring to, a site plan almost.
Preliminary plan, yes, showing all the setbacks. I would ask that they have a setback for each dimension to the side lot line, to the buildings. I need to know the separation distance. We
Right.
need to know the distance to the wetland buffer zone, and then show the screening in it. So I would ask for all of those to be.
All those
included on
elements.
this preliminary plan. It would be a preliminary site plan.
In effect, the same thing you're saying. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
One is, if moving the building doesn't change anything, then we would probably want to go forward with the current plan, which would mean we wouldn't have to spend more money on engineering. The other question is size.
That's the applicant's prerogative. If the applicant says, I'm not moving the building, I'm saying he should tell us now, because
The other
that's why we
question
need the
is,
plan.
Before we adjourn, the question is size. If we had a clarification, we said, you can build 4,500 square feet, or whatever the number is, that way, we have a rule we can go by. Right now, there's enough ambiguity in there. It's like if someone has an opinion. And
I understand. You presented a plan at, I think, 3,100 square feet.
Correct.
We're considering that plan. There may be an amendment to that plan for the next meeting. We'll consider what's on that plan. We can't give out advisories that, well, if you keep it to,
Right.
we're discussing that. If you want to do a 15,000 square foot, one of the members has suggested he's fine with that. But I'm not going to tell you to do that.
We just
Because-
want to have a, it's an ethereal thing right now. We don't know exactly where we can be.
Right.
What is like someone's personal thought
And-
of what it is.
and-
The bylaw states that you can have up to X, and we're below X. That's all I know.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Fareed, if he wants to stick with the original plan and come back, he can do that, and then we vote on that plan. If he wants to submit a new plan showing the trees and all the setbacks that Mr. Carmichael has described, we will consider that. It's somewhat up to him. We're just voicing our concerns and doing that publicly, and that's all we can do.
Right.
Is there, a feeling is that this is going to be continued to the next meeting.
Right.
Can we discuss a next meeting date, please?
Yeah,
The last Wednesday is maybe too late, considering.
yeah, I would,
Do it the one before,
if we could do it on the 18th,
Wednesday, September 18th.
because we also have another application I need to schedule, so that way I can get
Does that
that
give you
notice
enough time?
tomorrow. Yeah, the
It's only
18th will give
3
me enough
weeks, I
time.
think.
That'll give me enough time to get it posted in the Sun
I'd
Chronicle.
really rather the summer not be over, but I guess that's irrelevant. We're talking about mid-September, wow. Is the 18th available?
I can do the 18th. You can do the 18th.
I am troubled by that day. Let me just search in my email. I don't know why it's. Yeah, the 18th should be good. We can say administratively then, we're going to, next meeting will be Wednesday, the 18th at 7 PM. Then is there a motion to continue this matter to the next meeting of September 18 at 7 PM in conjunction with asking the applicant if he wishes to submit the new plan to do so according to our specifications that we've gone over quite carefully, and also to, if he can, if he chooses to, submit a rendering of the landscaping, which would be included as part of the plan.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, open for discussion. I saw a hand.
No, it's irrelevant now.
Okay. Does the applicant understand where we are? We can only act on what's before us. It's really up to you. If you want to, it's an additional expense to submit the new plan, engineered, stamped, and a rendering of the, the scenery, the bushes, the trees. It's up to the applicant. You hear the concerns of the board, and if it's the applicant's view to try to assuage those concerns, it is up to you to submit what we've suggested. Yes, Mr. Freed?
Everything you guys have asked of me, will comply with the screening, the cement slab and everything. I mean, it's not an issue, whatever I gotta do to, I do understand the concerns, and I understand the concerns of my neighbor as well. And, I'm doing whatever I can to appease it. And I will do the drawings for the trees. If it doesn't change, moving the building back, I'd like to just keep it where it is and then show the landscaping. If that's what you guys are asking, that's good.
Well, if it won't make a difference to the neighbor, it doesn't sound like anything he does is gonna make a difference.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but
I mean, if that will increase his chances of approval, he'd be more than willing to do so. But that, again, is hard to pre-decide.
you can't pre-decide. I mean, you've said that you've offered to your neighbor to take a look at what's,
Right.
but that's all anybody can do. And we can't decide that for you.
We're probably gonna go ahead and try to increase the chances of getting this passed, and I would assume that would include moving the building back. I feel that he's gonna go every inch he can to try to
Okay.
come to a compromise here, and I think that will aid. Again, I don't feel that the town has the right to limit the size. because-
We're not discussing that any further right now.
Okay.
There's a motion to continue the meeting. That's all I want to address with this
So
discussion.
we'll try to do whatever it takes to make the neighbor.
Understood.
comply.
Mr. Drobnis, did you have something pertaining to this?
The applicant just said he's not gonna move the building, and then the builder said he is gonna move the building. If they're not gonna move the building, then it's already in motion, but it's like.
We understand.
Why are we not closing the hearing then if we're not moving the building?
We understand.
You can stipulate a tree line. I don't think you need a drawing to show that there's gonna be trees there. That's not gonna really change the scope of the thing. If the applicant was saying, I'm gonna change the size of the building, then by all means, let's see what that is. But right now, we're not changing any scope of this work. Right now, you're saying put some screening up. I think we can agree that, okay, he's gonna put screening up and you're gonna hold him to that, but the building's not changing in size.
The motion is to continue the meeting to the next meeting date, continue the
The
hearing.
18th, September 18th?
It's been seconded. All those in favor of that motion? Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is continued. The hearing is continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking generally, not to that application in particular, it's always an issue that, we can suggest what an applicant does to modify, but in doing so, the applicant has to realize that there's not doesn't mean that it's going to be voted on positively. And, the discussion going back and forth just wasn't getting productive there.
Right.
So we'll take it up next time and see what's submitted. Thank you, Mr. Carmichael, for assisting us. Moving on to other business. Bills and warrants, any bills?
No bills.
Taking out of order just for a minute, let's hold the minutes. Administrative review procedures and communication, what is that referencing?
That's a standard
Okay.
I think that's sort of an
There's nothing
open-ended,
specific
but.
there, yes, that's what I was asking. Election of board chair, we're required under the bylaw to elect a board chair every year. Mr. Tenore's not here. I'd suggest we put that off to the next meeting. I'm open to anybody who wants to step forward and, take the position. It's consensus of whatever the board wants. I just noting that Mr. Tenore's not here, I think we should just all be here, hopefully next time.
Right.
To do that. Charter Commission meeting, we have that. Oh, that's the master plan meeting, sorry. What is the Charter Commission meeting?
Yeah. Actually, I think Sandy reached out to you, Tom.
By the email of last week?
I believe.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that with me, but the Charter Commission, they're inviting us to participate, to the extent we want to participate in the Charter Commission process. So, again, if there's one member that wants to be the liaison, we could do it that way, or we can, it's all that.
We have one.
Yeah, theirs is a public, review also, so any of us can show up. Right, for the record, one of our members is on said Charter Commission. Should we anoint him and put a crown on his head as our liaison? Would you feel that's a good, that might
Do
be
you
a
want
good
somebody
thing?
else
Yeah.
so you can talk to somebody else, since you're sitting?
Well, there's two things. One, I wouldn't be to ask questions. Two,
You would what? Oh, sorry.
I wouldn't be to ask questions. I'd be there as a member of the ZBA. I wouldn't be a member of the Charter Commission, so I cannot ask questions. I cannot express
I got you.
my opinion as a Charter Commission, when I'm saying there as a ZBA member.
I'm not, that's interesting. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
So you think that might be a conflict in some cases?
Not really a conflict, it's just how I would have to
You'd be uncomfortable with
think
that?
about the answer to
Okay.
questions.
Well, we can leave it open, and any of us are free to attend, obviously, and hear what's going on. I mean, my time is limited, that's all. I don't want to say I'll do it. That's the only reason I'm sort of,
Yeah, depending on schedule.
I'm sorry?
Depending on schedule.
Yeah, but would I
Unless they're
like,
inviting, no, they're having the planning board to
Yeah.
one meeting, unless they wanted something like that.
Yeah, I think, a lot of the questions center around, what do you like about how government's structured, what do you not like? And just to throw out an example, thinking of the ZBA in Pacific,
Yep.
you may be interested in changing the composition of the select.
to make it a 5-member instead of a 3-member?
Correct.
Right.
Which on nights like tonight would make it possibly easier for the applicant,
Yeah,
Possibly not.
because then a majority vote, I think, is,
is easier to attain.
well, I don't know if it's easier, but
Well,
it's,
Theoretically, it
it's
would have been easier.
theoretically possible, right,
Possible.
right. If you have a 5-member board, voting board, then I think it's just a majority that controls, but.
Yeah. Well, I can see with a 5, too, is then you get a more well-rounded perception.
The problem is, though, that we've had some difficulty attracting people to volunteer. We have had a great board, but, the numbers are limited. We've only got one extra right now.
Yeah, I know, that is a problem, when you design these
But-
charters, you need to,
But
there's a reality, too.
making it a 5-member board, yeah, at least that's what the rule would say, and, if we don't attain the 5 right away, then that's a suggestion. I don't know, how do we do this? Do you want to vote to make that suggestion to the board, to the Charter Commission? We can do that, or we can do it informally. I don't know that we need to be formal, but I'm throwing that out there.
Would that be something that would be on town meeting anyway? Would that be?
Well, the whole charter
The whole
does.
charter's gonna get.
Right.
the
The whole charter's
right.
gonna go.
But the Charter Commission meeting, I mean, one of us would go to suggest that.
What
You know, if there, what's
I
the
mean,
next night? Do you know? There's a series of meetings over the next months, right?
Correct, yes.
There is.
So
There's a bunch
What are
of
we
them.
going with?
we can leave that open.
Looks like September 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I'll be at.
You are. Well,
They're meeting with all the directors.
I think we can authorize the Director of Planning and Development to say that the zoning board may be interested in charter change to make us a 5-member board. I'd want to ask Amy what the quorum is for that. Quorum rules, does that mean that you have to get 5 every meeting?
I don't think so.
I think that's correct. We have to get
Three.
I believe it's 3.
So it's still, I
would
would still say
assume
it's
three.
3.
So we could, in effect, change the rule and still be,
Stipulate that within the new charter, what
I see.
what quorum would be.
yeah, I thought that was state law, but okay.
I think you might be right. You might be right.
Amy has talked, or Alana had talked about this before. I just don't want to say, change us to 5, then, we don't have a quorum because we don't have enough members. But we can check into that. I think we can suggest that Paul bring that to the Charter Commission as an idea of the zoning board, that we feel that would give us some room to grow and other things. And if there are other specific issues, let's think about those and present them. Okay?
I'm all for clearing up accessory structure.
Yeah, I hear you.
You aren't alone.
The, so so I understand it, so if we went to 5, like in a vote like tonight, you would need a majority, which would be 3.
Right.
So-
3 would be the bare minimum.
Right, and then when a 3-member board,
You need to be, I think I have that. I printed it out last time. Let's see if I have it, because I wondered about a couple of the issues coming up. Just take me 1 second. Yeah, I do. Ow. Okay, this is Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 15, 1-5. Yep, it's one long section. Buried down in the section, the concurring vote of all members of the board consisting of 3 members and a concurring vote of 4 members of a board consisting of 5 members shall be necessary to reverse any order or decision of any administrative official, like Chris.
It'd be 4 for
4.
appeal.
Or to affect any variance in the application of any ordinance or bylaw.
It would be 4.
I think that's what this says.
right?
That's what
The only thing that this doesn't cover, I think Amy said last time, is a 40B, which just doesn't
Doesn't apply.
fall under
Yeah.
this. But the things that we do, other than a 40B, I think fall under this, meaning that
I see.
we need 4.
So with a 3-person board, you need basically unanimous decision.
You'd either need
Yeah.
3 out of 3 or 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't that effectively mean quorum has to be 4? Well, maybe a quorum is still 3, but you can't vote on anything unless you have a 4th person. That's what this seems to say. That's the kind of thing I'd like to ask Amy. If
Yeah, because if you go to 5, once it's 1 person doesn't show up, so you got 4. And then.
Right. See, we've had meetings, I think, is our quorum 2 or 3?
When you were 3, I think you had to,
I think you can have a
had to have a
quorum,
unanimous vote, though,
but that's the point. But a vote has to be 3.
right?
So at some level, you can have a quorum, but still not hold a vote.
Well, you were always 3 plus 2 alternates, so.
So I think our quorum was 3, and we needed 3 for a unanimous vote. So that a 2-to-1 vote tonight would have denied the application.
Right.
A 5-member board, this says, the state law says requires 4
4
votes.
to 1 for any variance.
Even if a quorum is only 3, that means the meeting can be held to talk about things, but couldn't do any votes unless the 4th person. Unless that can be written out of the charter, as Chris was just wondering. So again, let's ask Amy. I'll try to ask Amy.
Does that actually make it harder for us if you think it's
Yeah,
going to be
right,
that harder?
right.
Is it even worth bringing it up at that point?
So Paul can suggest that, the zoning board is
Yeah,
looking
you
at
can suggest that only if you can
Yeah,
get more
I'm
people.
only putting that as.
They're not
your-
about to take a vote anyway.
No, no, no.
Yet, so.
See if it's there to make sure we go and stay in the right direction.
We're identifying issues, that's what
Yeah.
we're supposed to do, so we can look into that a little bit, and I'll try to talk to Amy. But think of other things that you might want to bring up. Accessory use is one, of course. Okay, remote participation, that was part of the charter review too, wasn't it?
I believe it was, and, but the board has passed, the Board of Selectmen have passed a policy about being able to, see if boards want to have the option of remotely participating. So let's say Jim wanted to pipe in from Puerto Rico. He, if we had the technology, which is obviously, we're a little deficient.
I was gonna say, put it
Maybe.
right on FaceTime, does that count?
Right.
Is that,
Well, apparently they're looking
It's up to
into,
us.
I mean, I guess we have the TVs, right? So you can, in theory, stream it up to the TV. And then they're supposed to be putting a Polycom. Oh, there it is. There's a Polycom.
Yeah.
I don't think it was always there, but that would
Right.
facilitate.
For a
for
conference
a
call.
conference
type.
call, yeah.
I think in our case, I don't see how that's workable when we have to visually see things such as plans and point things out to each other or have the applicant or Chris. I think that would be really difficult. Now, obviously,
it's a good option if we're backed up against a
Right.
time constraint and our
with what we were
time's
just
up.
talking about, right. So in the right circumstance, maybe, wow, that'd be
Break glass in case of emergency type of.
well, okay.
Yeah.
So
I see it.
again, I
Yeah.
guess we expressed an interest in that.
Okay.
and we
Similar to
can-
what planning board wanted
Okay.
to do too, so.
To have the option, and then the town would have to set certain rules that are, I think that would have to go before the AG too, the Attorney
Yeah.
General to approve. But they
believe
probably
so.
have a model set of rules,
Right.
That's probably what the selectmen are looking at.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think in this board's case, because almost every meeting ultimately comes to some type of vote.
Yeah.
Either, maybe it's continuing it, but nonetheless, it comes to a vote. But whereas like, for example, the Charter Commission, we don't necessarily take a lot of votes
Right.
currently. You know what I mean?
So participation there is great.
Yeah, so it just facilitates moving the whole group along.
Right.
And that's kind of, so in our case, that's one reason why the Charter Commission was
Right.
pushing
And,
for it.
and I don't know how participation affects what we were just talking about, quorum. Does that mean you're present?
It does.
It does.
Yeah, that means you're present and can't. Amy talked about this. I'm not sure if you're present, but you can vote. That's something would need to get clarification, but I'll report back to the town manager on.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
we're
that you're
interested in
if the,
hearing, yeah.
circumstances are right, if the technology's right. But, yeah, there was something, I can't recall what there was something that she had mentioned about it, if you're participating remotely, whether
Okay.
you can vote or not, but,
We can, it's one thing we can check on. In this case, though, when people are bringing stuff in at meetings,
Very
that's
hard.
what's difficult.
But technically, are we gonna accept that ever, really?
Well, we've-
Consideration, yes? We've
accepted things brought in. I was wondering if he was gonna come in, the applicant tonight was gonna have a revised plan sheet. We don't for a new application, because it all has to be there in order to post the meeting and everything.
But there's nothing in our bylaw, nothing anywhere saying it has to be in, is that something we would add? The materials have to be in a week in advance before the meeting?
you could set that as a policy. The planning board did this year.
Did it?
Yes.
It seems like that would be tough to live by.
No. That
Applicants-
just means that some applications can't go every 2 weeks. But in fairness to the board members,
Yeah.
they were getting things that night of the meeting or the night before. They can't review that, so they.
Right.
But even he gave it to you yesterday, I didn't see that till like 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Right,
because I had
right.
to Check it.
I turned it
Right.
around, but, that's a challenge. But the board did issue a policy. And we put it up on their page, and, when applicants are in, they remind them that you need to get it a week before. So sometimes, on the more complicated ones, where consultants have to do additional work, they're going to come back at least in a month, at minimum.
For this, for example, I assume it'll take a couple weeks for him to get this stuff done.
Yeah,
And
depending on how
that's
busy they
right
are.
up against the week before deadline. But as long as we know going forward, we could work with that. But yeah, policies, I guess we can establish policies. They just have to be adopted either by town meeting or the Board of Selectmen or something to be official policies. Alana had talked to us about that.
Okay, because the planning board took a vote.
Oh, that was it? Okay. Well, something else I can check on. And, requiring the applications to have certain materials, and
Yeah.
we do that. And to have electronic submission, or at least a PDF file submitted with the plan set, those types of policies, we can decide on. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, you should get, in fact, I think it's a great opportunity to go beyond what we even receive now, that with, aerial technology, those, we now have some technology we use for aerial technology, like pictometry, which we can zoom in on a site and take it from different angles, and it can give a different perspective on it. And I just think it's time now for applicants, not only to give us the engineered maps, but like this would have been a great example, because it's hard to see the perspective of
Yep.
the abutters to this property or where this building is. So with technology the way it is, you could take an aerial and put a 3D model of a building. So, a board could review it and really get a perspective of,
Be able to see where the abutter is.
Exactly.
Sightline that
Oh,
he's
yeah.
concerned about.
Well, yes, I can't imagine many applicants taking us up on that. I mean, that's expensive.
but
Commercial
hopefully it helps lead to better decisions.
The
Well, some
ability
would do
to
it.
broadcast a GIS picture up on that board so everybody could see
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
on the board and in the public.
GIS, you mean publicly available?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
as Paul was stating, the pictometry.
Yeah, we need to fix the connection to this, but,
Well, what database does that access? The GIS database?
well, we don't have one, but,
Okay.
It's available on the internet,
yeah.
GIS?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, state of Massachusetts has quite a bit.
Norton Map Geo is GIS, and it's.
Well, right.
Huh.
Oh, yeah, right, that, and then pictometry. I gotta log into my account and then
Online, it's
just,
broadcasting on there now. We could be doing that now. So it's
Yeah.
very feasible.
we just need to work, I need to make sure I can get a good connection to this, and then when applications come in, put it up, and that way,
That'd be great.
That would help a lot.
it's a better version than, say Google.
Google Maps, yeah.
I mean, Google Maps is good too.
You can see some angles, but that's just
Yeah.
from switching.
Right,
You're going 100 feet and, magnifying,
right.
so it's not true.
But I need to, on my end of it, I will start bringing that to here so that you all can see it, but I just think down the road, it's something that applications, just my 2 cents, it would be so helpful than just looking at lines and circles drawn on a map.
You're saying, I know you had said it before, are you still working on the new zoning map?
We are, I'm sorry, the digital map is done.
Was it?
So if you go to the Map Geo, if you go to the town's website, or, go to your own, go to the ZBA website, there's a link to the Map Geo. If you click on that, that brings up the assessor's data,
Yep.
but we've added the zoning map layer to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I don't have to look at the crayon drawing.
What's wrong with the crayon?
That has
The
been
brown kind
retired.
of, I can't see the little tree marks there under the brown
The
section.
little hat, yeah, no,
And
it's,
the crayon was wide, it was like, yeah.
but it's on there now. So it's very helpful.
Okay,
It was a lot of work to get that. Tabitha was the one who initiated it and got it about 85, 90% there, but that's very helpful.
good.
Yeah.
And as we go forward now, we will have some zoning changes in for the next town meeting. Unfortunately, I'm not able to bring forward the zoning amendments for the village center. I just don't have the resources right now to rezone all those properties to a new district. Got to get that district refined and
I see.
need more than one person in a department. That's going to be my big point of emphasis to the Charter
I think
Commission.
well, quite frankly, I think everybody, well, maybe except for Chris, didn't ask for anybody.
I just got somebody, that's why.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's, with Nicole out,
which is actually kind of, it's really outside the scope of the Charter Commission when it comes down to it. It's not, we're not about adding.
Yeah,
true,
You know,
personnel.
but it's still
no, people like to,
it's still a campaign I'm making now.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it all fits in with the picture too. It helps to understand the picture of what's going on.
The town of Easton has 3 full-time planners and 2 full-time administrative assistants.
Are you kidding?
I'm not.
Full-time building inspectors as well.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
But Chris makes 3 times the salary, though, so
Yeah, he's living large.
I shouldn't.
What are they, a few thousand more people than we are?
I ruined it.
Like, it's not that crazy of a
It's not much of a difference.
huge difference.
Our salaries are going up, by the way. Paul has
Double them?
We're getting double?
guaranteed that membership, yeah.
And that's-
Yeah, you pay for the ZBA, right?
3 times 0 is 0, so Paul's effective. Okay, can we move on to minutes? And Chris, thank you very much again for your assistance. We'll see you, hopefully you'll be here in a few weeks at our next meeting. The May 20, do you have the May 29th?
Right.
Go ahead.
They're in there, so the only difference on the May 29th, this was responding to Lucas's comment that the motion should mirror what went into the decision. So I just went back to, in this case, there were about 5 decisions made that night, so I just copied and pasted the motion.
He had asked for more detail on
Which one?
one of them.
The 29th, May 29th.
No, but what hearing? Are you-
Anything that you had rendered a decision
Oh,
on.
gotcha, so it's all the decisions.
Yeah, most of them.
I
You
forgot
were
what-
very effective that
Lucas was
night.
talking about one of them, and I'm trying to remember which one. Oh, it was the sign, the gas station sign.
Yeah, but he made a more general comment, and I
Yeah.
think he's right that
So
it should
Paul
mirror it.
put the motion language into the minutes
Gotcha.
here, so it's more detailed. So if you can look these over and if appropriate, a motion to approve the May 29 minutes as amended would be in order.
So Paul, were these prepared by Nicole?
No, by yours truly.
The reason I asked
That's where your tax money's going
Well, the
to,
reason I asked
typing
that is
minutes.
It actually says.
It says Nicole, prepared
Oh, she
by-
prepared the original version of the 29th. I'm sorry,
Oh.
she did, and then that was just continued. But I've been taking them since.
We actually looked at these back in June, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when Lucas made the comment.
Motion to approve May 29th minutes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
The liberty of just doing it. July 31st, I just had a couple of edits, nothing substantive, but I printed out here, a newer version. I didn't do a red line, it was really just,
This is.
yeah, I just
Okay.
did a couple edits on what was in the Dropbox. I just did these a couple hours ago.
Perfect.
If, please look them over, and
Not 100% sure, I'm not 100% that it really matters at all, though, but on the Taunton Ave hearing,
Yep.
I'm not sure if I motioned to take it from the table or not, because I think that's right when Jim came in. And then I sat on the first meeting, and Jim took over after with David? Is that what happened?
I don't know, he came in at 7:54 before that, during the first hearing, so you may be right.
I just don't
Yeah,
think.
I've
I'm not sure.
recorded it as you.
I'm not, just because I don't, maybe I didn't vote on that.
Okay.
Right, but this was just taking it off
Gotcha.
Right.
off the table.
Removing it from the table. If you'd like to amend.
I guess I did it.
Sorry?
I did it.
You did it.
I must have.
Are there other changes suggested, or are they,
Motion approved July 31 minutes.
I will second that.
any further discussion? And we're comfortable with motion practice, and who made the motions? Okay. All those in favor of approval of July 31?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. There we go. Great. I did that too.
Perfect.
We are up to date with minutes.
We are, and they're posted. These will be posted tomorrow.
Great. Great, thank you for getting those.
We've already approved it must have been a June meeting.
I'm sorry?
There must have been a June meeting?
We did that in July.
Yeah, I dropped the ball on getting the May minutes
Amended.
amended.
Right, but, yep, yeah, we're all up to date. Great, thank you. Is there anything else to discuss tonight? Any other business? You know what? I'm still having trouble with the new email system. I got it to, sorry if I'm obsessing about
No.
this. I set up the rule to text me when I got a message in the new email, in the town email system. It works sometime. It didn't work for your emails from yesterday, so I didn't know that you would email me till this morning. I don't have it open all the time.
Yeah,
I was trying to set it up so that I just get a simple text saying you've got an email. Okay, sign on and go look at
didn't.
it. And it didn't, it works sometimes, but not
And
consistently.
I tried doing the same thing, that's how I missed the site visit a few weeks back.
Right.
I wasn't looking, I was on vacation, didn't check it, and I thought it was being forwarded, but it wasn't.
The rules will not forward an email to me. I've tried that
Okay.
in any number of ways. I've done it on Chrome, and I did it on Microsoft Edge or Explorer, you know, opening it and doing it, the rules and those. It just will not work. It may be that the system doesn't allow that.
it.
Right, but the text thing did work. I tested it several times. It worked a couple times, messages from Paul. And then suddenly, yesterday, I got one this morning, whatever that one was. I went on and I said, uh-oh, there was chatter yesterday that I never saw. So I'm
Yeah.
just frustrated, and if we can ever get our IT guy, you know, we can all ask that or strangle him at once, but just noting it for the,
And I haven't figured out how to get on my phone yet either. I can't get it to work.
right.
I think, David, you had it, got it to work.
I got to work on the phone, yeah. I mean, I actually, I have no complaints. It works
Okay.
Well,
I'm technology challenged.
yeah, I get it.
I'll get a hold of
I don't get a
Adam.
lot of spam.
I get no spam.
I get no spam.
I get nothing.
You don't
I
get
mean,
those
other than-
Biz Now, Boston Biz Now?
No.
I have 17 since last Thursday. I
No.
deleted them all.
Yeah, we get them. I guess they're just,
No,
They have our address, yeah.
Yeah, they have the
just
Norton
Send it to
address.
everyone. I'm surprised you don't get them too, but
yeah.
I'm just, you know, the rules work on every other email protocol with Microsoft that I have. It just won't in this. So I'm thinking something is restricted, you know, somebody tried to restrict it so we couldn't forward. I don't know. Can't figure it out. But minor problem, I guess. I'll just have to keep it open on my web browser as, you know, another one of the 10 tabs I have open, which I was trying to avoid. Just mentioning it for the record.
yeah, I'll talk to Adam and see if he can
Yeah.
figure out
If
what's,
we can do a forward, just ask them if it can be forwarded or not.
The rule says it can.
yeah,
The rules allow you to set it up. It just doesn't work.
yeah,
Okay?
I am not a tech
Me
person.
neither.
Luckily-
Any other business? Then our next meeting has been set. I'm sorry, do you want to talk
Set it
about
for?
October
Yeah, October,
as well? We can do that.
Do you have a lot coming in already? Did you say you did? Do you have a few coming in for next meeting?
just one other application that I'll have to get out, but. But again, I think it'll be advisable for Chris and I to talk about some of the proposed changes that are going to October, the fall town meeting. And I don't know that you would have to we have to figure that out. As the planning board is going to have to weigh in on, through their responsibilities on any zoning bylaw changes. But maybe at our next meeting, have you all weigh in on those. I think just the one that I'm thinking of that you all would want to take an action on and advise us is the accessory structures definition. But we'll go over some of the other other definitions that we're adding and,
Trailer definition.
Take a vote to support it?
Yeah,
That's
right.
What we would do? Or-
yeah.
That would be appropriate.
I think it would be, helpful to the planning board, because we would point out that accessory structures is something that you all really see a lot.
Chris, did you say something else, another change?
The
Oh,
trailer
trailers.
definition.
Yeah.
Trailers, we need to define that.
They use them as accessory structures, as we found out on one of the last cases.
Right.
I'm seeing them more and more.
Really?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
I'm
Okay.
out of state from on October 2nd through the 9th. And actually, the planning board has scheduled a meeting on October 2nd, which is a Wednesday.
So we should probably shoot for the 16th.
Yeah, the 9th's a holiday, 16th.
Oh, Yom Kippur,
Ah.
right?
Is 16th okay?
16th is good right now.
So we've kind of bumped them up a 1 week
Have we?
during this next period, but then so September 18th, then October 16th, that's a month apart.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is we want to go back towards the end of the month, we could push this to October 23rd,
If,
get us back in the routine.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Then the next month, though, November
I
is,
just have a selfish preference not to go to the 23rd, only because we have town meeting the 21st, the planning board the 22nd.
That's very selfish, Paul.
It is
It's a
kind of.
very selfish.
16th then for now?
Yeah.
Okay. And November is Thanksgiving, so we're going to have to do that earlier anyway, I think.
Sure.
Or after the
Yeah.
last week. I don't know when Thanksgiving is.
Yeah, I know personally, I always found it easy, just if I knew it was like towards the end of the month.
I agree.
Thanksgiving's
thanks-
the 28th.
It's the
Oh,
28th
it
this
is.
year.
So that would be we want to set the 20th now? We can.
20th?
November 20th?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. And we've got the next 3 set.
Yeah, that's good.
Then we can go to December 25th after that, before we.
Absolutely. Or the 18th.
Yeah, we
You
don't,
want a December 18th?
if you want to call it now, sure.
Sets the rest of the year for us.
I wouldn't want it any later than that in
No.
December. In fact, the 18th is maybe pushing it, just because there are always things going on, but we can do that for now.
And we'll get those on your
18th.
calendar.
Sure.
So September 18th, October 16th, November 20th, and December 18th.
For now.
Great.
And
If
there
we
goes
have-
another year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, summer isn't really over yet, so. Any other business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.